see that before you can break it, there are some bones that you can't even break. So that is the hardest tissue. Of all the tissues that a vertebrate is made up of, the bone is the hardest. Then it is composed mainly of calcium phosphate and organic materials. And when you hear calcium, let your mind go straight to strength. So the bone is made up of calcium phosphate, and it helps in rigidity and strength. It makes the body of the animal rigid and it makes it strong. The bone consists of bone cells called osteoblasts. The bone is made up of, or it consists of osteoblasts, which is formed from concentric rings. And each of these osteoblasts consists of an artery, a vein, a lymphatic vessel, and nerves. So, and artery veins, they are blood vessels. In cartilage, especially the elastic cartilage that I talked about, I said they serve the function of blood vessels. That is, they diffuse oxygen and food to nearby tissues so that you don't need the blood vessels. But here now, in the bones, you have the bone cells called the osteoblasts, and they consist, that is, the bone cells now consist of artery, vein, lymphatic vessels, and nerves. Also, the bone consists of osteocytes, osteoblasts, and osteocytes. These osteocytes secrete hard bone materials called collagen around the bone. The bone is made up of osteoblasts and osteocytes. The osteocytes now consist of artery, veins, lymphatic vessels, and nerves, while the osteocytes is the hard bone material, is one that secretes the hard bone material called collagen around the bone. The bones have their own blood vessels, which is carried in the Avasian canal, which supplies cells with food and oxygen. You know, the function and the roles of the blood vessels is to transport materials, food, oxygen, to where they are needed. So the bones have their own blood vessels that carries food and oxygen for living cells. The bone grows, it changes in shape, and repairs itself when fractured. The bone grows, so you know that your bone now is not as it is when you were 5 years, and it will remain like this. So the bone grows, it changes in shape, and repairs itself when it is fractured. When you get injured, it repairs itself, that is, it becomes healed. Then, for the formation of healthy bones and teeth, I mentioned earlier that calcium is very, very essential, and phosphorus. Calcium and phosphorus is very essential for the formation of healthy bones and teeth, because the bones are made up of calcium phosphate, calcium carbonate materials. Now, we want to talk about the differences between the cartilage and the bones. What differences? You know, I said the endoskeleton is made up of bones and cartilage, and we say both of them, they help in making the body rigid and giving it its shape. So what differences occur in bones and cartilage? Number one, the cartilage consists mainly of living cells, that is, the chondroblasts. But in the bones, it consists of living cells called osteocytes, surrounded by cells. So I mentioned earlier that you have osteocytes and osteoblasts in the bone, while in the cartilage you have chondroblasts. In the bones consist of calcium phosphate, that is, it consists of mainly mineral salts. The bone consists mainly of mineral salts called, we have calcium phosphate, but in cartilage you don't have such mineral salt. There is no mineral salt in cartilage. Then the cartilage is made up of soft substance that is flexible, but in bones, the bone is made up of hard substance. The bone is hard compared to the cartilage. So those are the differences between the bone and the cartilage. Also, the cartilage is tough and flexible. You can bend it, even though it is tough. The bone is strong and rigid, especially in adults. You can't bend this bone except at the joints, but you can bend your cartilage. Then the cartilage can be replaced by a bone. You know, I said that in fetus, that is the young baby that is developing, you first find cartilage. So bone can replace cartilage, but the cartilage can never replace a bone. The work of a bone, the cartilage does not have that strength to do it. So cartilage can be replaced by a bone, but a bone can never be replaced by a cartilage. Cartilage does not have blood vessels, though they perform functions of blood vessels sometimes, that is in transporting food and oxygen to nearby tissues. But bones have their blood vessels that supplies it its food and oxygen. Cartilage don't have blood vessels, but bones do have their blood vessels that supply it with food and oxygen. Now, still under the tissues and supporting system, we'll be looking at the mammalian skeleton, that is the skeleton of a mammal, the typical skeleton of a mammal. And first, under that topic, we'll be looking at the functions of the mammalian skeleton. What are the functions of the mammalian skeleton, or are they just there for decoration? No, they are not. So we are going to look at the functions of the mammalian skeleton. And the first is support. The mammalian skeleton supports the mammal. It's the one that helps the mammal helps the flesh to be in place. So it supports the whole body, it carries the body in place. That's the first function of the mammalian skeleton. It supports the body, it helps the mammal to be in shape. So it supports the weight of the body of the mammal. Then the second one is protection. The mammalian skeleton protects some critical organs of the body. For instance, the brain. The skull is one that encloses the brain. So the brain is not, first of all, it's not easily attacked because of the presence of the brain. Before you can attack the brain of the mammal, you have to get to the skull. So the skeleton is protecting the brain. Also, some other internal organs of mammal are being protected by the rib bones and the like. So the skeleton serves as a protection for the mammal. Then another function of the mammalian skeleton is movement. For instance, as a mammal yourself, you are standing because of the bones of your legs and arms. So, and you are able to move your body because of this skeleton. Let's just assume that the bone of your legs are not there. You cannot move. So the bones or the skeleton of a mammal helps it to move about. The next function of the mammalian skeleton, it is the site of production of the red blood cells. The skeleton is the site of the production of the red blood cells. Then the last but not the least is that it is the respiratory movements by rib cage. It helps the respiratory movements by the rib cage. So you are able to breathe in. So that your skeleton is moving. So it aids respiratory movement by the rib cage. So we've talked about five major functions of the mammalian skeleton. First, support. Second, protection. Third, movement. Then the site of production of red blood cells. Then respiratory movement by the rib cage. Now we'll be talking about the vertebrate skeleton. As I've said earlier, the mammal has endoskeleton. That is, the skeleton of mammal is inside its body, not outside like we have in some other organisms. But in mammal, it is endoskeleton. The mammalian endoskeleton is divided into two. We have the axial skeleton, then the appendicular skeleton. Axial, then appendicular. The axial skeleton consists of the skull, the vertebral column, that's the backbone, the ribs, then the sternum, that's the breastbone. The axial skeleton consists of those four: the skull, the vertebral column, that's the backbone, the ribs, and the sternum, that's the breastbone. Then for the appendicular skeleton, it consists of the pectoral and the pelvic girdles, then the fore and hind limbs, the pectoral and the pelvic girdle, the fore and hind limbs. But now we'll be looking first of all at the axial skeleton. That means we'll be looking at the skull, the vertebral column, the rib, and the sternum. The skull is composed of a large number of bones fused together by joints called suture. So in this bone, it's not like a calabash, like it's just one bone that is just a whole bone. No, it is made up of a large number of bones, but it is fused together by joints, and those joints are called suture because they are not like the major joints of the body that you can move and you can see. No, they are small joints and they are called suture. The skull has three main regions. We have the cranium. The cranium protects the brain and the main sense organs, that is the eyes, the hair, and the nose. Then we have the snout or the face, then we have the lower jaw. So the skull has three main regions: the cranium, the snout or face, then the lower jaw. That is that about the skull. Then for the vertebral column, the vertebral column forms the backbone. Then it protects the spinal cord. That is the bone that protects the spinal cord. It is held together by ligaments called intervertebral disc. It is held together by ligaments called intervertebral disc. Then the vertebral column of a mammal has 5 different types. We have 5 different types of bones that makes up the vertebral column of a mammal. We have the cervical vertebrae, that's the neck bone. We have the thoracic vertebrae, that's the chest bone. We have the lumbar vertebrae, that's the upper abdomen